When Israel and Iran traded missile strikes in June 2025, America's five largest weapons companies gained nearly $38 billion in value in just 48 hours, even as the rest of the market dipped. It was proof war makes business boom in the US. Why? Because America runs on war money. In 2025, the US defense budget hit $850 billion, more than the next 10 countries combined. That's about 3% of the entire economy. But when war breaks out, that number grows fast. Congress throws in extra money without much debate. For defense companies, chaos becomes a sales pitch. More than half of that $850 billion doesn't go to soldiers, it goes to companies. Defense giants like Lockheed Martin and RTX aren't just military suppliers. They're job creators in nearly every state. Over 2 million Americans work in jobs tied to defense contracts. So when spending drops, local jobs vanish, and members of Congress fight to protect that cash, no matter the global situation. And America isn't just funding its own wars. It's the world's top weapons dealer, handling 43% of all international arms sales from 2020 to 2024. When war breaks out overseas, countries rush to buy US tanks, drones, and missiles. Each new conflict is a business opportunity. This pattern started long ago. During the Cold War, America built up its military 24/7, even when no war was happening. It created a system where companies, lawmakers, and voters all had something to gain from constant preparation. That system never really ended. It became a quiet part of the economy. That brings us back to the 2025 Iran-Israel war. America didn't send troops, but it did promise weapons. It did move warships. Oil prices jumped. Defense stocks surged again. In just 2 days, the machine kicked back into gear, faster and louder than most people realize. These defense companies don't just build planes and bombs. They build influence. Every year, they spend millions on lobbying to keep defense spending high. In 2023, the top 5 military contractors spent over $60 million lobbying Congress. They also donate to campaigns, sponsor events, and hire retired generals to sit on their boards. It's all legal and very effective. But it goes deeper. Many states rely on this money. Lockheed Martin alone has offices or factories in every single US state. That's no accident. It makes it almost impossible for any member of Congress to vote against defense bills without risking jobs back home. A senator in Alabama might not care about Ukraine, but they do care about the 25,000 jobs tied to Raytheon contracts in their state. This creates what some call the military-industrial complex, a system where war, business, and politics all blend together. It wasn't planned this way, but over 70 years it became normal. Congress approves bigger budgets, companies get bigger contracts, workers keep their jobs, and voters rarely complain. Even Pentagon staff admit the problem. In leaked memos from 2022, one defense official warned that we are funding systems built for the wars we want, not the wars we face. But changing anything risks breaking the whole system. And that system is massive. Here's one example, the F-35 fighter jet. It took 20 years and nearly $1.7 trillion to develop. It was built by hundreds of suppliers across 45 states. Politically, it was bulletproof. Killing the project meant cutting thousands of jobs. Even if the jet had problems, and it did, it kept flying. So when a new war pops up, in Ukraine, in Gaza, or between Israel and Iran, the system doesn't ask, should we get involved? It asks, what can we sell, and how fast? That's not always a bad thing. Allies need help. But when business and war get this tangled, it's hard to know who's really driving the action. This also affects how the public sees war. In 2025, less than 12% of Americans had a direct family member in the military. For most people, war is just something they see online, unless it brings in money or raises gas prices. The disconnect makes it easier to ignore long-term effects. But I want to give you a different perspective for a moment. Every time the US fires a single Tomahawk missile, it costs $2 million. In 2024, over 400 of them were launched in various strikes. That's nearly $800 million in just one kind of missile. War isn't just about soldiers or strategy anymore. It's about products, expensive, high-tech products that companies are paid to design, build, ship, and upgrade. And these products don't stop at weapons. There's now a full supply chain for modern war: drones, satellite tech, cyber tools, AI software, fuel, body armor, food kits, even rebuilding services after the bombs stop. We can break down the 3 major ways US companies make money at every stage of global conflict. 1. selling the tools before the war starts. Before any battle begins, contractors start preparing. This includes training soldiers in other countries, selling old gear, and offering military advice. These deals are often made quietly. In 2023, the US sold over $200 billion in weapons and services to other countries, most of it through private companies like Boeing, Raytheon, and General Dynamics. And when tensions rise, like they did in the Middle East in 2025, companies don't wait. They boost production before a war even starts. If war breaks out, they're ready to fill huge orders. It's a smart business move, but it also raises questions. Are we arming allies or betting on conflict? 2. Supplying the war while it's happening. Once a war begins, contracts surge. The government needs everything, from jets and tanks to meals and internet. During the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, private contractors made over $138 billion just by providing food, laundry, and housing. Companies like Halliburton became infamous for overcharging while cutting corners. Today's tech-focused wars mean even more profit. Drones like the MQ-9 Reaper cost $32 million each, and companies also charge for training, repairs, and software updates. In the Ukraine war, US companies sent not just weapons, but GPS jammers, AI battlefield tools, and cybersecurity services. Some of these tools are tested in battle, then sold elsewhere. 3. Rebuilding after the bombs drop. When the war ends, a new phase begins: cleanup and reconstruction. But guess what? Many of the same companies that built the weapons get paid to rebuild the places destroyed by them. It sounds odd, but it's true. After Iraq, companies like Bechtel made billions restoring roads, power plants, and water systems. Some call this the boomerang effect. Bomb, rebuild, profit twice. These rebuilding contracts can last decades. And they aren't just about helping people, they're about securing influence. US firms often win these deals over local companies, meaning profits keep flowing back home. Here's the problem. This cycle, sell, strike, rebuild, isn't driven by strategy alone. It's shaped by markets, stockholders, and quarterly earnings. The longer a conflict lasts, the more money there is to make. Even more concerning, some weapons are designed to be used and replaced. The Pentagon buys systems knowing they'll be outdated in a few years. That means constant upgrades, new orders, and more spending. Even during years with no major war, the US still spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. In 2024, that was over $850 billion, more than what America spent on education, transportation, and housing together. That money keeps the war economy running, even in peaceful times. But what happens if real peace breaks out? If the big wars stop, do all those companies just slow down? Not really. The war economy has learned how to stay active even without active wars. Defense leaders often talk about readiness. That means always being ready for war, even if it's not happening now. To stay ready, the military needs to train, update gear, test weapons, and stay ahead in tech. That's great for safety, but also great for business. Even in 2025, without boots on the ground in a big war zone, US forces are involved in missions in 70+ countries. Training here, flying drones there. The US military never really stops moving, and that keeps the checks flowing, shifting focus to new threats. When old wars end, new threats appear. Cyber attacks, space weapons, artificial intelligence, drone swarms. These aren't just headlines, they're massive new markets. In 2024, the Pentagon created a $120 billion tech defense budget focused just on these modern threats. This allowed newer companies like Palantir, Anduril, and SpaceX to enter the defense world, alongside the usual giants like Lockheed and Boeing. These firms pitch themselves as peace through innovation, but their revenue still depends on military fear and competition. The China factor. One reason America keeps spending is China. The Chinese military has been growing fast, building ships, testing hypersonic missiles, and increasing influence. US leaders say this is a reason to stay ahead, and defense contractors use that fear to argue for bigger budgets. Even if the US and China never fight directly, the tension creates what some call a forever prep war. It's not war, but it's not peace either. It's just expensive. So, can a war economy survive peace? Yes, but only by changing what war means. The US now treats global tension as a permanent state. It doesn't wait for wars. It prepares for them, funds them, and profits from them, whether or not they happen. That means the machine doesn't shut off. It just shifts. From Iraq to Ukraine, from tanks to drones, from boots on the ground to bots in the cloud. America's war economy isn't a conspiracy. It's not run by one person or group. It grew over decades, shaped by jobs, politics, fear, and business. And now it's big enough to run even without war. But that raises a tough question. If peace doesn't pay, what kind of future are we building?